Hey everybody, welcome into the Bee Hive. I'm your host, TheBee at LLC, and today we are honored to have a guest here, Aaron Berk. He works out of Harlan J. Berk in Chicago, Illinois, world-renowned in ancient coins and antiquities. Very happy to have him here. Let me bring him up. Aaron, welcome in.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, for sure, for sure. So, I went down to a investment conference in New Orleans, kind of a precious metal investment conference, but there's a few coin dealers there as well as some other. We lost you. I lost you.
Sorry about that.
So yeah, no worries. I was just saying I went down to New Orleans to an investment conference, and they had mines there, but they also had some coin dealer booths as well. And I stopped by one booth and they had some ancients. I said, "Oh, you guys have ancients?" And they were like, "Oh, yeah, here's our ancient coin guy." And we got to talking. And I said, "Yeah, I really like ancient coins. And I kind of, collect them raw." And he said, "Well, anything that isn't slabbed is fake or the source country takes them back."
Wrong.
So I said, show me some paperwork on that. And he didn't really, he didn't know anything. He said, yeah, it's just known anything that's outside of us.
What's the name of the company?
What's that?
What's the name of the company?
I don't want to name the company to.
Well, my guess is they're telemarketers on some level. And it's not true. If just because a coin is in a slab doesn't mean a country can't come and confiscate it if it was illegally taken out of the country. Putting it in plastic doesn't keep it safe from that, because guess what? NGC doesn't go and vet every coin that's submitted to them, whether it was stolen or not. So
Okay.
if it was stolen out of a museum, brought to the States and put in plastic, that doesn't protect it from not going back to the source country. So that's a bunch of garbage.
Have you seen any much of that? Like, I know you were at that large auction and that was a $1 million gold coin. The FBI came in and seized it and took that back to source country. But there was kind of a whole story with that. Plus, it's $1 million coin.
It was actually 4.2 million.
4 point. Wow.
That was the Brutus Idmar, and that only went back because Roma faked the pedigree on it.
Right.
If
Right.
he wouldn't fake the pedigree, it would have never come up as being an issue.
So it would have been actually probably able to stay over here too.
Yep.
Really.
As soon as he faked the pedigree and they proved that it was a faked pedigree, he had to then come clean on where it came from.
Okay.
Because once you create a situation of fraud,
Yeah.
which is what he did.
Yeah.
You open yourself up to all kinds of criminal issues.
So is that kind of a first that have you experienced much of coins, the source country coming after coins? Have you seen much of that, or?
It's only in high end usually material, because honestly, most countries don't want your $1,000 coins back,
Right.
or $20 coins back. They only want things that are valuable, and the other thing is that it's on the source country to prove that was stolen. So they actually have to prove that it was taken out of the country illegally. And so if there's no proof, then they can't take it back. So the only time is if they have photographic evidence that the item was actually taken out illegally. So, but in the case of Roma, on the gold Idmar, because he faked the pedigree, it turns out that the descendant of the individual family name that he used lived in New York. And they went to Hey Liberty, Space Miner, all you guys, Jake. So when they went to when the New York's district attorney went to the like the family name of who was named as the owner, he said, no, not only did they use my name illegally, but they tried to bribe me. So then they knew that he made up the pedigree. And so when he came to New York, they arrested him and they said, we know you faked the pedigree, so you're going to go to jail unless you tell us everything. And he said, yep, I bought the coin illegally from some smugglers. It came out of Greece within 5 years. And that pretty much ended his company. So to keep
Wow.
himself out of jail, he gave up everything. So, any person who's ever gotten arrested dealer-wise in the United States or in Europe, it's because they knowingly knew that they were dealing with smugglers and or they fake pedigrees. Those are two big no-nos. You just don't fake pedigrees. And why do people fake pedigrees? Because the value of these things go up dramatically when you have a pre-1970 pedigree. Not because it makes them legal or not legal, it just means that they can flow in and out of countries without any issue, meaning even in source countries, and you can donate them to museums and institutions.
So pre-70 actually allows for the transfer from country to country without any issue at that point.
Even source countries, yes.
Okay.
Yes. And more importantly, they can be bought and also donated to museums. Museums won't take anything that's not pre-1970, generally speaking. So what's happened is, and I made this argument on why they should legalize, is that just because of the pedigree issue, you have people paying monster amounts of money for them. And it actually pushed Richard Beale to put that pedigree on the Brutus Gold Eidmar. If you had legalization, or you didn't have people paying ridiculous prices for pedigree coins, then nobody would care and it wouldn't be as big of a deal. Like in US coins, nobody cares who owned it, generally speaking. It's not important because US coins are legal. So, I mean, if it came from a famous collection, you might say it, but nobody really cares. But in ancient coins, it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And that the whole gold Eidmar that I bought from my client, which is now the only one in private hands, that one has a pedigree to the 1930s. It was first brought to the British Museum. It was published in a lot of works by foremost experts in the 50s and 60s, and so that's got the best pedigree in existence for any of the gold Eidmars, and it's got the only one that's pre-1970.
Oh wow.
And my dad bought that coin in 2002 for Barry Fairstein, a collector, for 120,000 Swiss francs. Then in 2006, it sold for 430, and then in 2021, I bought it for 2.4 million. That's a massive amount of increase in 20 years, based on pedigree alone. And so I don't think coins would bring that kind of money. And a lot of this is driven by the archaeologists who are trying to keep people from collecting coins so they can be left in the ground, because museums are full and they want to document everything coming out of the ground like they used to do in the 1930s, because everything was legal back then and nobody cared. And so everything was recorded. Now nothing's getting recorded. All the information is being lost by the black market taking stuff. And the black market always took stuff. And so they're not going to stop because they broke the law before. They don't care. They're still going to break the law. The difference is now you've got you got pieces going for monster amounts of money. And yeah, occasionally people get caught looting. But it's like a hydra. You cut off one head and there's another head ready and waiting there. So,
Sure.
When you're dealing with the criminal aspect of the side of the business, it doesn't change. It's like fighting a drug trade. These are resources that are in the ground in source countries, and people find them and they pull them across the border themselves. They sell them, they hide them. They don't want anything to do with them in some cases, because if you dig a well in Italy on your property and you find a tomb or you find a hoard, the last thing you want to do is call the government, because if you call the government, they're going to shut you down for a year and a half while they study it, and government moves very slow there. So guess what? In the meantime, you don't have a well. And so a lot of times they just throw things to the side. They don't want anybody to know they even found them. In England, you have treasure trove laws that are legal, and actually people will go from around the world to metal detect in England because it's legal to find things. You find things, you call a liaison. Somewhere they've got about 4 or 5. It's all run by the British Museum. You can go to the British Museum right now and see all. They have it up on a map of England, and they can show all the find spots. It's littered.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
They know where everything came from. Anything, the British Museum gets first right to try to buy it from the guy who found it. If they decide they don't want it, then the person gets it. They have to split 50-50 with the landowner on the value of the items. And that way, everything's recorded. People get to keep it if they want, sell it if they want. The British Museum gets what they want. The archaeologists in those countries get what they want. It's a very well-run system because, yes, there's problems with it, sure, but ultimately you get more things that are recorded because most metal detectorists take it very seriously and they follow the rules. Black market people do not follow the rules because there's no rules when it comes to them. So I have long lobbied that legalizing in source countries would be much better off because the more laws you create, the higher the value of things that are considered off limits as far as collecting and about moving in and out of countries like the pre-1970 stuff is. And the other thing is that I'm not, as long as I'm not going into a source country or knowing that I'm buying from somebody who looted it and I have information and I know it's looted, I'm not liable because if I go and I buy it out of an e-sale in Germany, it's on them to whether the stuff is stolen or not and they're putting it in their auction. I have no responsibility to that. Now, if I bought something and the government comes and they say, hey, we know this was looted, okay, I give it back. Big deal. But I'm not in trouble because I had no idea that it was looted.
Okay.
They're not in trouble at all. Could they come
Okay.
has the government knocked on my company's door? Yeah, sure. Over the years, it's happened. But when the government calls, you just tell them everything and you give them everything back. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. Okay. So if you
evidence for that.
So if you see a coin that doesn't have a pedigree, because I see that a lot, and that it's not even a recent pedigree, not just pre-70, but no pedigree.
Yep.
But if it's being sold by an auction house, it's fine on you to buy it.
Yep.
Okay.
And you bought it, you legally export it, you legally import it. It's free and clear. You didn't do anything wrong. It's on the government to prove that you knew it was looted. If you don't know, which I don't, I mean, would I have a clue? Sure, I might have some, I might think so, but I don't know for sure. And I don't go into source countries and buy from people. It's just not worth it for me. I'd rather just buy it out of e-sales and auctions. Then I don't have to worry about it. And just because something doesn't have a pedigree doesn't mean it doesn't have a pedigree, because a lot of times pedigrees get lost. And so you got to remember, coins have been traded for thousands of years. And
yeah.
So, there's all the time I'll buy a coin that doesn't have a pedigree, and then we find that it has a pre-1970 pedigree. And now I added a shitload of value to it.
Yeah.
So, that happens. And a lot of that's going to change with AI. As AI gets better and better, you're going to be able to find more and more pedigrees.
Yeah. I was wondering about that. Might create whole category, because that's another thing I wanted to get into was the rarity side of things. But before we get there, so there's not like an underground railroad where these coins are just streaming over. Mostly you're finding them just from other e-sales, auctions, and the auction house themselves doesn't have to ask a bunch of questions. If coins come into them, they can just put them up for sale. And like you're saying, it's up to
you ask. I think if somebody seems shady, I stay away from them.
Sure.
Honestly.
Sure.
If you're dealing with somebody who lives in Turkey and they've got, I've got some coins and they're in Switzerland, I'm gonna give them to you. I might feel like this is too much of a setup. I don't want to deal with this. So as soon as I hear where somebody's from, like I'm from Turkey, I'm from Bulgaria, I'm from Greece, I'm gonna bring you the coins. Don't worry. Now you just told me you're gonna smuggle them. So no, I can't work with you. So that happens a lot. People will be like, no, I'll bring them to you in Chicago. I'm like, no. You just told me that you're looting it. I can't deal with you. So,
and even if he doesn't tell you he's not looting it, just saying I'm coming over from Turkey or from that's too much of a red flag to.
Yeah, well, I just tell them, as long as you legally export it out of Turkey, then I'm happy to deal with you. but they're not going to be able to do that.
And to legally export it, you would have to take it where? How would you do that?
You probably have to take it to the government, to the museums. I don't know how it works.
Museum or something.
I,
Yeah.
you know, Turkey claims they have a law in their books that anything before 1880 can't leave. So, but it's, you know, it was never enforced until more recently. And in fact, there was a very famous case. There was a famous antiquity called the Stargazer. They're Anatolian marble figures, and you see them in the market occasionally. Well, there was the biggest one ever was like, I don't know, it was like 2 feet tall, and they're about 3,000, about 2,500 BC, something like that, out of Turkey. They kind of look like aliens a little bit. And in any case, there was one that was had a pre-1970 pedigree. It was like, I think, bought in like 67 or 65 or something like that. And it was actually on display at the Met for a long time, and actually at the Brooklyn Museum of Art for a long time. So for like 30, 40 years, it was at a museum. Then when the owner, who is this famous collector that everybody doesn't like, his name's Steinhardt, he actually was in the news for looting, because he was buying stuff in the, in the 70s and 80s when nobody cared. So he was dealing directly with looters. He didn't give a shit, and he just never stopped. And so when the laws changed, but this piece was completely legal and it was his, and he brought it out of the museum and he put it for sale at Christie's. I believe it was Christie's, and Turkey said, no, that's ours. It doesn't have a pedigree before 1880. And it sold for 15 million in the auction, and the Turkish government contested it, and there was a case, I think, for about 5 years, and eventually Turkey lost, because the judge was basically like, you knew where it was for 40 years or 50 years and you didn't do anything about it. You never went to the museum and said that's ours. You only went to the museum as soon as it went to the open market. So they were basically like, no, we're not playing that game. They wanted it for their museum basically for free. So, and a lot of countries will do that occasionally. And so, Bulgaria for a while, not Bulgaria, Romania for a while, because there's a lot of Republican hoards that are found there and coins that are from the imperatorial period. And so they were going around and claiming anything Republican or imperatorial was theirs in auction, even though it wasn't necessarily found there. And we had a case where we had to fight them for 5 years because they wanted a group of coins. They were going after coins that weren't even in there, shouldn't even be theirs. And my understanding is that whoever was working in the Romanian government was trying to build up the museums there, and they were basically going after all the dealers and basically like saying these are all ours, even though it didn't even come from Romania. And eventually we won our case, and the Romanian government had to buy the coins from us. So they literally called us with a credit card and bought them from us. Yeah, but we had to spend a lot of money to fight them. And then I got reached out, like, I don't know, it's a couple years ago, and they were asking me about the Homeland Security was asking me in Chicago. They were asking me about these coins of Kosan, and that's what the Romanians were going after us for, and they wanted to know more about. We had one in our sale, and I said, just so you know, this is what happened back, before you guys were here, and I said, these coins are being sold around the world every day. So they can't say that this one coin is theirs, because unless they're going after every coin that's ever sold. And then I went through coin archives and I pulled them all up, and there was something like 12,000 of them had sold in the last 20 years. And I said, are they going after all 12,000? If they're not, then it's silly. And I proved to them that I said, look, there's one selling today. There's another one selling in Germany here. There's one selling in France. There's one selling here. So it's like they're just hunting, and then they drop the case. So
I see.
Countries will they will make requests to the State Department for things, and it's up to the State Department to follow through with it, and then basically just answer the questions about it, and then the State Department decides if it's worth it or not. Because they don't care about going after something that's cheap. The FBI, they want big numbers. They
right.
want huge numbers. That's what makes. And in fact, they always pump up the numbers. So when they say when you read a story that the government says that they confiscated $10 million worth of drugs or this, it's usually half of that.
Yeah.
They always, and I can tell you why I know that, because the Polish Museum in Chicago was, somebody brought in a manuscript that was to our store. This was like 20 years ago. And we talked about it once in the show with you. And you looked it up, I believe. But basically, it was a 4-page letter written by.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And in any case, it turned out it was all this. These documents were stolen by the director of the museum when he was alive, and ended up in his mother's house. And then she died, and the family found it. And the Polish Museum thought they were stolen by somebody else, and never knew it was an inside job. And so we helped the FBI get back. It was about $1 million, maybe up to $2 million. And they claimed it was 4.5 or something like that. They doubled the price for the papers. So,
well, that's interesting because, you know, was he actually stealing it? Because I mean, these things have been in circulation for so long. It's probably now that the price is coming up, that social media plasters these things out there. That
he stole all their documents, and then he stored them in his mother's house. And then he died, and then his mother died, and then the family was literally cleaning out the house and found it all up in the attic. And they're like, "Oh, these might be important," so they brought them to the store, and we started buying them from them. And he was stealing them.
I see. So that kind of makes me wonder, because like with that $4,000 Aydemar, was that, do you put more pedigree or rarity to the value increase on that?
Well, it was a rarity issue. I was the underbidder on the coin, and my client was only bidding on it for the rarity factor. The pedigree helped it when we found out about it, but we never really believed the pedigree, because I asked for information from Roma beforehand, because that was the other problem, is that the coin was offered 5 years earlier for £2 million to all the top collectors in the world without a pedigree. Then all of a sudden it shows up in their auction with pedigree. Now, could they have found one? Sure. So all the Homeland had to do is interview everybody that was offered that coin 5 years earlier, and they say no, there was no pedigree. And then they found the descendant, and that kind of cleared it all up. So, but my client was like, well, I just want to own it. He didn't really care because of the rarity factor of it.
So I'm kind of wondering, because, you know, I was surprised when I interviewed your father to find out, you know, ancient coins were already here in the States and whatnot when he started up. And I know it's much of it comes from England and the source countries in that area. But how long?
It came from all over.
How long have some of those auction houses, and like what would be the established auction house that's been there for hundreds of years? Like how? I'm kind of wondering, you know, now that it's getting more popular in social media, you know, and you got the FBI starting to pay attention, and museums and source countries thinking, okay, I can get this in my museum, and that might not have been watched quite as closely 100 years ago, in my mind. I might be wrong, but how long have some of these auction houses been open and dealing in this, and how established? Like I still trouble wrapping my mind around that.
You know, I mean, I think that you know, we have auction catalogs going back to the 1800s. So I mean, they've been selling ancient coins forever, and there's even evidence that the ancients actually collected coins also. So
right.
I mean, it's been going on since day one. And now what's really interesting is that even in some of the source countries like Italy, there's some auction houses that have opened up. They're just not allowed to export, but they sell them internally.
Okay.
So how crazy is that? You know, they don't want the stuff to leave the country, but they're happy that people are making money off of it in other ways. So, because there was just an auction in Italy a couple weeks ago, and you know, and unless it had a pedigree, it wasn't going to be able to leave, so you couldn't buy the stuff if you weren't in Italy.
Yeah.
A lot of Italians and Greeks who buy ancient coins outside of the outside of Italy or Greece, they keep their coins in holdings in Switzerland and England and places like that. They keep them out of the country.
So with coins that are in the 4 or 5,000, 1,000, the lower range, doesn't mean just because there's no pedigree attached to it doesn't mean that it hasn't traded hands many a time.
True.
And just not documented.
True. That's why it's not all illegal. I mean, there's no laws on the books anywhere that says that owning anything ancient is illegal. There is no laws in our country for that at all. It's all about what you can import into the country. That's all. It's so, what has a passport and what doesn't to get in.
So this is kind of a modern thing where the source country is starting to become more of an issue.
Yeah,
than it was.
It didn't. I mean, they always have kind of complained in the last 50 years, but most of the fight is not coming from the source countries. It's coming from the archaeologists in this country, because archaeologists, they pride themselves on having everything stay in the ground so they can excavate it, and they feel like that the looting, and it's hurt them to be able to document where things came from. But we've always argued, okay, antiquities is one thing, but ancient coins are not found on sites generally. They're actually single finds. So when you find a hoard of 1,000 or 2,000 or 5,000 coins, there's usually nothing else around it. It's just somebody buried it in the ground, like that's their safety deposit box.
Right.
Not buried at their house. They would bury it out in the country somewhere, and then they would die, and that was it. And then found 2,000 years later. It's when you're digging up a actual known site or a village or a house, that's when you start finding mosaics in the floor, vases, antiquity. You find very little coins. You might find some local bronze coins from that period, but you will not find any gold or silver, generally speaking. I mean, it does happen, but that's not traditionally where these things are found. And so we've always argued that as an industry, that coins should not be illegal because, one, they were mass produced, they were made to travel, not to stay in one area. So shouldn't be indigenous to the people who created them, because they were traded in ancient times. So it's really tough to prove who owns what.
Sure.
Just because Italy or Rome ran most of the world at one point, most of Europe and England and France and all that, and Germany and all that area, doesn't mean they should own everything that came from all those countries.
Yeah, and it's been such a long time. Like with new hoards, obviously it'd be nice if people started doing like England is doing, so we could copy the hoard.
Go back to there's actually a syllogy book here that I have. It was put out by the ANS. It's a series of books going back probably to the 1920s. It's called Coin Hoards, and every hoard that was found was recorded. And they recorded the number of coins found, how many rarities were in it. They recorded the whole thing, and then it would go to the market.
Yeah, that would.
Now all that information is being lost because you can't say that it came from a hoard. So like this Athens hoard that supposedly was found in whenever, nobody even knows when it was found. Nobody knows how many coins there were. Some people say 30,000, some people say 80,000. You just don't know. But none of that is recorded, and nobody knows except for the people who found them.
Yeah, they should really open that up. And then now everything is going to be traced there, so why not document it and open it up to the public worldwide? Because it is going to be categorized. People are going to know who bought what, where it was going. Like the pedigrees are going to be different from now on out than they would have been a couple 100 years ago, right? I mean,
I made the argument that prices are at the highest of all times because of the pedigree issue. And the fact that the upper 1% are paying ridiculous prices for ancient coins, most spent ever, because they want that pedigree and they want that rarity. So if you get something that's aesthetically beautiful, rare, and has a pedigree before 1970, then there's no telling what somebody will pay for it.
Yeah.
So, the facing Panticapan, I was the underbidder at $6 million. That's the most expensive ancient coin ever to sell. So, and that one turned out, when it sold to the Sheikh in 2012, he paid 3.2 million for it, and it didn't have a pedigree. I think the pedigree was like 1990s or something like that. And then when it came up for sale at NAC, Kunker found that it was ex-Hermitage from like 1910. So that pedigree was lost for over 100 years. And so right before the sale, they found the pedigree, they listed it, and that made it a much more attractive coin to own. And so then that broke the record back up the gold IBAR at 6 million. So, if you didn't have these laws and the countries were making money off the stuff instead of trying to fight the stuff, they'd be able to record everything, at least a lot more than they're recording now. And you'd have legitimate people like going over, like England gets a ton, like I read when I was doing this for my podcast, and about legalization, England gets thousands and thousands of people that metal detectorists that go over just to metal detect because they want to find a treasure. So, and then those landowners who own farms are like, yeah, come over, because if they find something good, they get 50% of it. So,
Right.
So what does that do? That creates tourism. That creates a revenue source. That's great for the archaeologists because they don't have money to do digs anyway. So, I mean, these days, if you want to go on a dig, you have to pay your way in. I have a lot of clients that go on digs and they have to pay like, two, three, four, $5,000 to go on the dig. And that's to help finance it. And then I always tell them, you guys find coins? We find shitty little bronze coins. That's it. They don't find real treasures, at all. So, I mean, occasionally, but not really. So, because that's not where coins are found. And they mostly find fragments and they find shards of vases and things like that. They don't find a lot of good stuff. So,
and why not, like, when the Athens hoard was found, must be pretty large because it's really affected the market quite a bit, right?
Some, yeah, but it absorbed pretty good because there's that many people who like it, who like Athens.
Who like it. Yeah. But it would be nice, like, and I would think over time AI is probably gonna take care of some of this anyway. But like you say, if you could go through that actual hoard and see, okay, there was this many, old ancient what's the name for old ancient Athenian? Archaic. Thank you. So you could categorize. You got 15, 20 archaic and 100 of the rate. That way, it's gonna give your market an idea of where to be, and so, I mean, I
always tell people, if you want to know if there's a new hoard without really knowing, is if there's a really rare coin and all of a sudden it starts showing up at all the auction houses around the world.
Yeah.
Like you see 2 or 3 in every auction.
Sure.
Out of pedigree, there's a new hoard.
Right.
Not hard to figure out. It's pretty logical. So, and that's all it really takes. And so, like, I'll see, like, because I'm watching the auctions for clients all the time, and I'll see a rare coin that keeps coming up, and I'm just like, well, you shouldn't pay the same price anymore, because I know there's a hoard. There must be a hoard. I don't know how many coins there are, but I know the price is going to start to dip because more and more people will be satisfied and won't need it, and so then the price is going to come down. And you can see that on the Tigranes, the Armenian king, Tigranes II. He was really rare. And anytime you got a Tigranes, it was $2,500. Boom, 25. It would sell immediately. And I started seeing Tigranes all over the place, and the price started to come down. Now I wouldn't buy one if I was going to buy one, I'd buy one for $800 and sell it for $1,250, or $1,000. So they're just not bringing what they were because now everybody's been satisfied with them.
Okay, so and that gets into the slabbing. Now that we have slabbing taken up a large portion, at least the nicer coins, right? A lot of people like to send the nicer coins in to be slabbed.
Yep.
And that's starting to get a documented case of how many actual high grade.
Well, not really, because a lot of the coins end up back into the market. The client then sells the coin, and then person who doesn't like slabs cracks it out. Then it goes through a couple others. Then it ends up going back to to somebody who buys it and submits it again, now your population numbers are being skewed by the same coin.
Yeah.
That's what's happened in the U.S. market. There, if you go to their population reports, there for U.S. coins, we know exactly how many U.S. coins are minted every year. So on every rarity, we know how many they minted.
Yeah.
How many ancient coins are minted. But in the U.S., the population reports are greater than the coins that they actually created because of the amount of over submitting of the same type. I mean, there are stories of people who literally bought a rare US coin and submitted it 20 times until they got the grade they wanted. So what do you think that's going to do to the population numbers?
Right.
And it used to be that, and this is where the slabbing market, the slabbing NGC and PCGS really screwed up, in my opinion. But what they used to do is if you resubmitted the coin with the tag, you got a credit for every tag you turned in. And that way they could kind of control the population numbers because they knew that something got cracked out.
Yeah.
And so a lot of dealers were making money because they were taking people's tags and keeping them and then turning them in. And so, and I don't know what they got, like $10 or $5 or whatever it was. And so the grading service decided to stop that. And so they're losing all that information because, you know, they were able to kind of control the population numbers a little bit by knowing what was cracked out. Now they don't have a clue.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm one that I cracked one of my coins out. This guy that was telling me everything that's out of slabs is fake, and I'm like, well, mine's out of a slab.
Well, that's because he wants you to only buy his coins. That's why.
Right, yeah, and he was obviously not,
And usually they're not very educated on ancient coins.
That you could tell that was
they go by what the slab says, and they don't actually know anything about ancients because that's
right.
why slabs were created in the first place. It was originally created so that people who don't know anything about U.S. coins could sell them. And so you had a lot of telemarketers that were dealing in U.S. coins and who don't know anything about coins that were just selling the plastic. And because you didn't have to be a numismatist to know the coin. You just had to know look at a sheet and say, oh, an MS62 in this type brings this much. And that's it.
Right. Yeah, and like on your last podcast, your last podcast was awesome. I don't know how many times I've listened to that over and over, but there was so much good information in that. And yeah, it for me, it's also kind of giving you a false understanding of what ancient coins are. Like, I think a lot of people, if they're only trusting in the slabs and they see, oh, here's a slabbed ancient, I think it gives the people a perception like, oh, this has been in a case for thousands of years and you can't, like, no, it's for thousands of years not been cased and it still looks in this immaculate condition. And that, for me, that's a huge part of being able to hold the coin in my hand and gain such a respect for the coin, because I'm holding it in my hand like it was thousands of years ago. To me, it kind of skews the perception of what ancient coins are a little bit in my mind.
Right. And the other thing is that NGC doesn't guarantee the plastic. So even if they mess up, they're not going to guarantee it. So are you saying that all ancient coins and slabs are real? And if there's one that's fake, are you saying that, should NGC have to give the money back because somebody paid some astronomical amount for it for whatever reason? I mean, the bigger issue that I think, and I've made this argument, I talk about on my podcast all the time, is that NGC has done us a favor because of the way they grade, it's also hypersensitive on the grade. That because they want to capitalize and have people make money off the grade, so there creates more submissions, right? Because if they put a star on a coin, mint state 5555, and the Chinese or whoever cares about that, and they pay 10 times what the coin is worth, that's going to create a lot of submissions because regular people are going to see that and say, I have one that's just as nice. I'm going to submit it to Heritage, or I'm going to submit it to NGC. And it's gambling. They're not going to give you that same grade over and over because I don't even think they know, what, they're looking at thousands of coins every day. You're not going to be perfect all the way through. They're going to make mistakes just like anybody else. And by being and ancients weren't meant to be sold on grade alone. There's so much more to it. There's rarity scale. There's artistic merit. There's all kinds of wonderful things that go beyond that. And so by being hypersensitive on the grade, companies like Heritage can't sell bronze coins because every bronze coin's been smoothed in cleaning. And there's a difference between smoothing and tooling. Like when I have a Greek vase, and this is the way I explain it, because most Greek vases are broken and restored,
Yeah.
filling a crack line is like smoothing. It doesn't hurt the value whatsoever. It's just part of the process of restoring it back to a normal state. But if I start to in paint figures on that base that no longer exist on it, that's called in painting. That destroys the piece. It has no value or really diminishes it at that point. So if I'm just cleaning the coin and I hit it in a little bit of the surfaces because of why I was cleaning it to get the sediment off, because when they come out, they're in clumps of thousands of years of sediment. So you got to clean them. You got to do it mechanically. You clean into the bronze a little bit. You might get a little bit of scraping into the fields. That's smoothing. If I start adding detail into the figures, or if I lower the surfaces so far purposely just to raise the rest of the iconography because it's worn, that's also kind of a no-no. So that's kind of the balance of it. But when NGC puts smooth on almost all the bronze coins, well, anybody who's hypersensitive on grade knows those comments on there are negative, and they don't want to own
Yes.
a coin like that. So they're not going to pay for it, for one. And when I talked to Baggy about that, who runs NGC, he's like, well, it's up to the dealers to teach the collectors smoothing doesn't matter. And I'm like, no, it's because of you that you've created a system that's so hypersensitive on the grade that people don't want to own them. So now you have a big portion of the ancient market that's never marketable through slabs, which is great for us because that means Heritage can't sell them and they can't take over the world with it.
Yeah.
And then they're stuck dealing with high-end silver and gold that is popular, and they don't ever get sophisticated collectors. In my last podcast, if you saw it, I was talking about the usurper coins. All the usurper coins are of shitty quality. They would never get they'll all should be 1 or 2 out of 5 for a surface, every single one of them. Do you think somebody's going to pay for that? No,
Right.
absolutely not. But the rarity level is massive on those coins. And so when Heritage has one of those coins, go buy from them because you're going to get it cheap because they're collectors. A lot of them are not advanced collectors, and that's not what they're buying. They're buying quality. That's all they care about. And so you're going to end up buying a rarity from them for cheap because it doesn't fit into the square of what NGC has created in the system they've created.
Yeah.
I mean, right now I'm in the middle of talks right now, and I think I might do it, but I'm not sure yet. I got to kind of work it out. But basically, you can take a high-end resolution image and turn it into binary code. And you can use the SHA system, SHA 250, for Ethereum. Basically, you can create binary code of all the image and all the crevices. It turns them all into code, basically into
ones and zeros, and yeah, sure.
Yeah. And so that works for the color as well. So one of the big arguments NGC always has is that if it's cracked out, somebody could tamper with it, right? Well, if you lock, it's like a fingerprint. You lock that image in place, and then you put it on the as a what do they call it? It's used in the blockchain. It's a blockchain contract essentially. You can tie that to the blockchain. It's there forever. It's not on any server. It's like there forever. And if anybody makes a change to it and you take that image and you then check the code again, it'll change. And so it'll show you where it changed.
Right, but it'll know that it was the same thing. It just had something happen to it too. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So now do we need to encapsulate anymore? No. So I can create a authentication certificate system for clients, and they could send me their coins, and under the Berk name, I could then take high resolution photo, put it on the blockchain with that fingerprint, list that code on the certificate or not, I don't know. Make it, yeah, it's an NFT essentially, and I don't even know if I would grade them because I think that's where the issues come with people being so hypersensitive on grade, and it's just an opinion, and a lot of the grades change from people to people. But I think making sure it's real, making sure if there's a problem with the coin, whether it's got major tooling or whatever the case may be, that's recorded with all the history and the pedigree on the certificate that's laminated with the photo. and people would then have high resolution photos of their coins as well, and it would be a certificate saying that it's real, it's locked in place, now it's ready to go. And then I think there's a lot more of the raw market that would want that, and
I
who
would like
the
that.
ability to send their coins to NGC and get them encapsulated. Now you eliminate the encapsulation altogether, and now you're just creating certificates, and that's the way to do it.
I love that idea actually. I think that would be good because it's good to, and that takes care of like rarity. Like, and let's talk about, you talked about just kind of looking
I
at,
want to have a rarity scale. I would like to have a rarity scale and a artistic merit scale of some sort, because then you could create value from that, but it's still opinion based, because my likes may be different than somebody else's likes,
yes,
and
yeah,
that's the thing that I have a problem with NGC is that they put a star on a coin.
right,
People are saying, oh, well, they put a star on a coin, so, or they say, what's the other one they say? I think that they say something like, artist, like nice style or something like that.
right,
That's not really a scale, and it's like you don't know why they put the star on. They can put the star on for pedigree reasons, for artistic merit reasons, for rarity reasons. There's all reasons that they say they put a star on. It's not just for eye appeal. And so and for somebody to pay for a star is kind of crazy. And so I think making it more of a service for authentication, and to like say this is really nice for these reasons, but still not have people overpay for them. Just I think people just want to make sure our coins are real. That's it.
yeah, and the brushed, like I bought an
Trust
Athenian
me.
owl that had brushed on it, and that comment made me dislike that coin. And now looking back, knowing what I know, that was a beautiful coin, and there's no need of a
Yeah.
3,000-year-old coin to that is in such beautiful condition to have that, like you say, negative looking comment,
Mhm.
even if it might be somewhat true, but
I
when
can
it's
tell
on
you.
that grade like that, it just creates this negative tick in your mind. When actuality, that's an amazing coin example from that time in beautiful condition. In an ancient coins, that's much more of a reason to be interested in it than that star or like the label that gets put on it, I guess.
Well, the other thing is there's only so much real estate on that label, right? So you don't get a lot of the write up, you don't get the description, you don't get, unless you pay for the pedigree, which costs $5. If you don't pay for the pedigree, they don't put it on. So you got to pay extra for all that, and there's only so much space for them. But
Really?
if you did it on a big certificate, you don't lose anything. You can put all the information. You can even put the history. There's all kinds of stuff you can do with it that would be much cooler. And
Wow.
a lot of pedigrees get lost because of that.
Yeah, I can't believe they don't put the pedigree on there if you don't ask. That's amazing.
Pay for it. They charge $5 extra.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and I can tell you in Asia, they will they in Asia they won't buy a coin that says brushed.
Well, I won't anymore. I mean, it puts a false image to something that doesn't necessarily need to be there. It's not that it bothers me if I find out that it was cleaned and maybe it could have been done a little bit better, but the strike, the artisticness, the fact that it's still in such good condition over that much time, like so many different things.
No, they put fine style on a bunch of coins, but they don't put it on all coins. And it's I don't know. It's just And I was talking to somebody who just got hired by NGC. They haven't started yet, and they're in my field. They think the brush thing is stupid, because really, if something is over cleaned, then just downgrade the surface, and just downgrade the surface. And I'm in a meeting.
I'm going to give your son a silver bar.
Okay, I had one downstairs for him. Russ has one put aside
I
for him.
want a large one.
Yeah, he's got a 10-ounce bar put aside for him.
Okay, very good.
He's got it downstairs.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, I love hearing your dad in the background.
What was I saying? He interrupted me.
About the brushed being, and the
Yeah, it's just downgrade the surface. You don't need a double negative. It's so stupid.
yeah.
If they put a lower surface, like sometimes they do like 3 out of 5, and I'm like, I can't figure out why. And when they say brushed, I see it, but I don't. And sometimes I think they're just like, I think that, they're looking at thousands of coins sometimes in a week, or, maybe even 5,000 coins. I mean, they're from what I understand, they're 2 months behind just on their express. And so they're so far behind. So my guess is they're going to start going cross-eyed after a while, and so that's when mistakes happen. And so whether it may not be authenticity necessarily, but it could be on grade, and if somebody ends up paying $5,000 for a mistake because somebody overgraded it at NGC, that's not very cool, and they don't care because they claim they guarantee grade, but I don't know how you can guarantee grade. It's crazy. Is innovation even considered in collections? What do you mean innovation, Space Miner?
Well, are you looking into doing the blockchain tagging? Because I think that
yeah, I talked to somebody who's heavily into the business and is already interested in working with me on it, and I could probably do it for Antiquities also, honestly. So
I think that's I actually really like that.
I just have to flush it out, and because the upcharge is really cheap. And in fact, I'll tell you exactly what the guy was talking, because he's actually an IT specialist. But last night we were talking about it, and he said the tech you want to use is Arrowweave to store the image, and then an Ether smart contract would cost like a penny to store the image, and then it's $10 to store the smart contract. So it's pretty cheap.
That's cheap. It's not bad.
And
throw that on the coin.
A really nice laminator, really nice printer. Maybe come up with some other packaging ideas and things like that for like how it's shipped and stuff like that. It's not that hard. It's not that expensive. It's more just the time and figuring out how to handle that, the output of it and all that stuff, because if I start getting a lot of submissions, it's going to take time.
Yeah. And the more I learn about Ancients, the pedigree is like such a big part of it. Like, so that would be great to start getting it documented like that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I'll be able to do it at some point. I'm trying to partner up with my sister because her client has the most complete auction catalog library in the world, and most of it's not online, and she's scanning the whole thing. So she'll be able to find pedigrees no one else will be able to find.
Awesome.
So
yeah, I mean,
we can eventually do a pedigree research for her, using her, and so, but my turnaround would be a lot faster as well, because I get the coins in, photograph them, put them in a database, have them written up, and then out it goes. There's no I don't have to create a case for it,
Yeah, and like with the usurper coins, the rarity and the understanding of how the coins, like you were saying with the usurpers, they weren't approved by the Senate. And so therefore they're not getting good die engravers. These are hurried, rushed coins. So a really good condition usurper coin is still junk as far as looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
But all the value is in the history, in the rarity, in the like all of those separate categories, which is completely different. Like Mike Nodelman was saying, as far as grading modern coins. So,
and if you have and I get it, if you have a collection and all you have is mint state 5555 star coins, you're not going to want to have a VF 1 out of 5 coin, for surface, and I get that, but that's because they've been trained to be hypersensitive on grade.
Right.
And if you want to collect every Roman coin ever produced, which some people do, you need the usurpers. And if you want the usurpers as part of your collection, then you're going to get some coins that aren't graded. So you ever heard of the Tyrant collection?
No.
So it's the most famous collection ever put together. Okay. And he has everything slabbed except for his Roman Egyptian, because the Roman Egyptian isn't very pretty and a lot of it is smoothed. And so all of those were, out of all of his collection, those were not slabbed.
But it could be some of the more important part of his collection still. Like it doesn't. That's the thing, is that, you know, even if the quality and the look and it's all junk, if it's the best of that coin and it's then that's very, very meaningful, you know. So it really is completely different than we're viewing it as the slab market is.
Right.
And so.
Is your dad gone?
So yeah, so you were talking maybe possibly remove strike and surface because that's in the grade, and then add artistic merit and rarity.
Yep.
And rarity has it. I thought about that, and that's really where my mind is at when I'm looking at coins, is the artistic. Firstly, that for me is mostly where I look. And then, but the thing that throws me off is I don't know the rarity. Like that is so important.
And that's the thing, is that the slabs don't teach anybody about ancients, because if there was a rarity scale there or artistic merit scale, and somebody said, well, they put the comment that it's high style or something like that. But how good of high style is it? What's their level? Is it marginally high style, or is it really fantastic? If they put a star on it and say fine style, does that mean that it's really fantastic artistic merit? It doesn't really tell you anything. And there's no really any rarity level either about it. And I got some pushback about it, but you could also just say rare. I suppose they don't say that on the slab either. So there's a lot of reasons to teach people about getting off of the grade. And I understand grade doesn't necessarily make the coins more expensive, but the whole point of slabbing ancients to begin with, or slabbing ancients, was to have people feel comfortable knowing something was real.
Yes.
Right? And so but that doesn't necessarily make it profitable, right? So how do you make a slabbing company profitable? By creating a hypersensitive grade scenario that makes it so that you only want the top of the line of what they're going to grade. And then you're going to have people fighting over that, and that creates a market. So if you're just doing it for authentication, it's not going to create a market anymore. So they're doing it purposely so that they can make a lot of money, and they're a for-profit company.
Yeah.
So that creates more submissions. That creates more people giving coins to people like Heritage, who really, like I've said it on my podcast many, many times, and I don't try to pick on Heritage. Like, if you have a high designated 12 Caesars coin in silver or gold and it has a star, I would give it to Heritage, because you're going to make you a ton of money, But if you have the same coin and it just is EF, I don't necessarily wouldn't give it to them. They're not going to do as well. So
yeah, and with me, where I bought a coin in a slab, took it out of the slab. Now for me, I'm going to put that same value that I paid for it, including the slab, because I was after the coin itself, not the slab.
Right.
And so now I've removed it from the slab, and when I sell it, someone may want to slab that. And now you're like triple paying for slab, and all that was there originally was that it's authentic, like you're saying.
Yeah, and Space Miner asked about slabbing destroying the values, and I would say that they haven't really destroyed the market, because they've created a lot of new collectors. So I give them kudos for that. And I don't have any problems with people putting coins in slabs. What I have a problem with people overpaying for the slabs. I don't like these runaway prices on coins that don't matter.
And for me too, creating the wrong understanding of ancients, like that's a problem that I see. Right. Like that comment that I got, well, everything out of slabs means it's fake. Well, that's ridiculous. And then you start like thinking, oh, it's a star, it's the finest one known, but that's crap art. I wouldn't even want that coin. So it's like a skewed understanding for modern people. That's one of the things that I find that I kind of don't like about slabs. But I don't have a problem with slabs. I don't have a problem with someone who wants it in a slab. I just like it outside of the slab, because for thousands of years, that's what's so cool, is you can hold the same coin in your hand.
You every time I put a slab in somebody's hands, they're like, But if I put an ancient coin in their hand, and they feel the history of it in their hand, it changes for them every time.
It
And
did
you
for
also
this
learn
one.
a little bit every time, because if you can really study the edge of the coin, you can barely see the edge of the coin in the slab. And yeah, they do a good job of like having the prongs, and so you can actually see it, but you got
Yeah.
to turn it on an angle and you can
Yeah.
barely
It's
see
not
it.
nearly the same.
So you're really taking it. It's kind of a leap of faith, because you're taking it on the grader that they didn't miss something on the edge. And so every ancient coin I ever get, I always study the edge, because I want to see how it's produced and how it's compacted. And you're never going to see that in a slab. So you're basically taking away what you could be learning by holding these coins. So
Yeah. Yep. Okay, well, time's slipping away. I've been wanting to ask you, like, kind of before we get out of here, an overall question.
yeah.
What's something that you've learned from ancient coins and the ancient coin market, like in life as a whole? Like, what have you know? Because you've been in it for a long time. What strikes you about the ancient coins, or maybe even with antiquities included in there, that that you've learned about life, like that has benefited you, or something that strikes you that other people might not know?
Well, I would say, when I started, I didn't really have an artistic eye, and I didn't appreciate art. And so it gave me a great appreciation of art. It gave me a great appreciation of cultures that have come before us, and how cultures have inspired artists from today and from yesterday. You can see stuff like Picasso, and where he may have gotten his influences from. So, and without being in this business, you would never really know that. And when I go to a museum and I can see certain aspects of things, I can see things that a lot of other people can't see, because I've been doing this for so long. And so it really developed me in such a way that it 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 made me really appreciate art and want to be with art all the time. And so,
Awesome.
you know,
One thing that I've have found fascinating is to see, as a culture is getting stressed, like the destruction of the Roman Empire, and watching the degradation of the art as the society is degrading. Like, that's amazing. And watching, to me, I kind of relate it to a lot of art that I see nowadays that I'm just like, what is that? That's ugly. Get that out. And it's like, I kind of feel that same way about our society right now. And so I
right,
find that fascinating, that
right,
correlation. But
correct. So, and it makes you appreciate, when you appreciate other cultures. I think you also are uh, more open to the rest of the world, I guess. And also appreciate different cultures, because you see how their cultures developed over time. And so I think that that's something that's really beautiful. So I think, also, like, there's a lot of people who go through life and never collect anything art wise. And I think that, there's a lot of people who have a lot of money. They think that spending their money on cars and boats and houses and vacations is really what fulfills your life. But I think that those people would greatly appreciate, or have a more fulfilled life, knowing that they surround themselves with beautiful things too, that you can really enjoy. Looking at a piece of art that can inspire you and make you feel differently, or if you're down and you look at something that picks you up, they can be very powerful. And
yeah,
so I always joke when I walk into a house of somebody that I know is a multimillionaire or a billionaire, and they have no art on the wall, and they own whatever they want, and they think that going to dinner and spending $5,000 on a bottle of wine is what life is all about. And yeah, there's some aspects of that's nice,
sure.
but there's something to be said about collecting something that somebody owned 100 years ago or 2,000 years ago.
Yeah,
So it really and it's a good way to store wealth as well, right? You have a good meal or a good bottle of wine, you're going to just pass it through your body, and that's it.
right.
But if I buy a beautiful piece of art and I put it on my wall, if it's a painting, and I enjoy it for 20 years, then I decide I want to sell it, and hopefully it's appreciated, but it hasn't lost all its value. I
Right.
can still get something out of it.
Yes.
So it's to me, that's it's much more rewarding. And so I think that, and I can generally tell you, I didn't collect coins as a kid, even though my dad was a coin dealer. I played sports, and I played video games, and so I didn't get into collecting art until I developed my eye here and my appreciation for this stuff. So it took a lifetime, really did.
Yeah. And it's cool that with the metals, you're preserving that image for thousands of years, and that's the same appreciation for a long period of time. That's kind of amazing. And one more thing before I let you go, this coin I just got from you, and it says rare without date. And I went and looked into kind of what was going on there, and at that time they that's kind of well, I mean, the Romans kind of redid the whole Gregorian calendar or whatever, so like, but he was kind of trying to set up dates off of their reign and their understanding in this coin, and so this was before they started putting dates on this specific coin. But it's interesting to see, like, it tells you that much about
most of the Greek coins are that way. They don't have dates on them. It wasn't until the legends on Roman coins started they started putting dates on them.
Oh, okay.
Because you have the legend usually is all of their titles, and you get titles based on the amount of years you've been in office, and so we know when they came into office, and so then you can count based on what the Senate has given them for tribute,
Okay.
and where they are in their reign, and so then you know the exact year based on that, all the legends.
Wow, cool.
So they're basically spelling it out right on the legend.
Right.
And on Greek coins, they don't do that. They just
I
say
see.
king this, and maybe they'll have the name of the moneyer or whatever, but they don't have legends.
Yeah.
Because kings kings were dictators, right? They didn't need to like have a senate give them tribute or give them, specific things happening over time.
Yeah.
They were king. That's
right.
it. So it's a little bit different than when you got into the Roman period, which they were a republic, and you had the Senate that were making decisions, and it wasn't just about the emperor. So it was a shared thing going on there. So that's when the dates came. Because even in the Roman Republican period, you don't have dates, either. You just have moneyers and their names, and that's it. So.
All right, fascinating. Thank you so much, Aaron.
One last question here. He said, Space Miner said, if possible, what do you think future historians will seek from our modern coin work that would hold true to historical value, and what you pick to preserve? Well, that's a tough one, because I think when you got into mass production of coins, the artwork went away. And so I'm not sure what they would think of it. I think that we also produce too much money. That's the other problem. Thank God they got rid of the penny, because we were losing money on that every year. They lose money on the nickel too, so that could be the next one to go, honestly. But our money used to be a lot prettier, and it's not so pretty anymore.
Yeah.
It's more about having the what do you call it? The anti-forgery things in the note, and less about the beauty of the note.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Just going back to the degradation of the Roman coinage, right? Like, it becomes something different than what it started with, when it was the image meant a lot, and then it just becomes, just get it out.
I mean, look at you guys are all silver stackers. I mean, God, you guys, everybody's happier than a pig in shit right now. So, with silver breaking $60.
Yeah.
I actually think that we are probably going back to a gold and silver standard, because we've been overprinting money, and a lot of people have lost faith in the dollar, but the rest of the world's kind of screwed up too. But it's not like when the Hunts cornered the market, silver market in the 80s. It was two guys that were doing it mostly with paper and some physical, and all they had to do is change the rules on them overnight and destroy them.
Right.
Now it's a world thing. You can't change the rules here in the States and expect the rest of the world to follow.
Right.
And so, and you have the Chinese, the Russians, South American countries that never were holding gold and silver now are all hoarding it.
Yep.
So you're now seeing a fracture in the paper market.
Yep.
And so it's coming.
Yep.
And so, they're talking. I think $100 silver is not out of the question at all.
Me either.
Higher than 100.
Yep.
The fact that it already broke 60 this year is not what people expected. A lot of the gurus didn't think that would start happening until next year. Most people I've been listening to are saying 2026 spring is when you're going to see everything go crazy. But ultimately, I think that when metal goes crazy, that means the rest of the market is going to be in the shit.
Yeah.
And we're going to have hyperinflation. It's going to be a mess. It's going to be a complete mess.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my investment broker, and I knew this for a while, but the Chinese have been supporting the U.S. dollar, like a lot of countries, by buying treasury bonds.
Yeah.
Well, at one point, the Chinese had $2 trillion worth of our treasury bonds. You know how much they have now?
How much?
600 million.
Wow.
They've sold off that much. And
wow.
You know what they're replacing it with? Gold and silver.
Gold. Yep.
So, because they do not want the dollar pegged to oil anymore. And they don't want the dollar to be the universal currency anymore. So,
and then we fall into a kind of a commodity war of sorts, which is kind of happening.
There's not enough silver to go around. There already is a lack of supply in England. There's a lack of supply. I know in South Korea, they stopped selling silver altogether because the banks couldn't cover it. There's a supply here in the States, but that's it. And we burn 300 million ounces, I believe, a year on electronics and solar panels. And silver is mainly, the mining of silver is mainly a byproduct of copper mining.
Yep.
And so they're not mining enough copper, and there's not enough silver mines coming online. And it takes, to start one, get it online, it takes 10 years for silver to come.
That's what I've been hearing too, 10, 15 years, yep.
So with the burning of metal, with the price going up, you're going to get countries like China who have to put a lot of silver into solar panels. They're going to start buying up, instead of a 3-month supply, they might buy a 6-month supply or a year supply out.
Yep.
They can lock in their price. Same with electric cars. And so, all it takes is a couple of these companies that start hoarding silver because they need it for their production lines. And the physical market, as soon as you get a run on paper, forget about it. And then I heard in November that JP Morgan, who is the largest holder of physical silver in the country, they own 20% of all the silver, who's been manipulating silver. And in fact, in 2020, got fined $950 million for manipulation. Yeah. They moved 8% of their holdings to the public holdings to private. 8% of their holdings. So, which means that if there's a run on paper, they're not giving up their private holdings. And it's kind of like the swaps with the mortgage swaps problems we had in 2008 with that recession. They have sold so much silver on paper that there's not enough supply to cover what they've sold. So if there's a run on silver from the paper, it's all over. And the squeeze is already on.
I think so.
That's why we've seen silver go where it goes.
I think so.
So anyway.
No, that's awesome to hear your thoughts on that. I've been wanting to ask you, but I try to keep it on
I got people coming in and buying gold and silver like crazy at these levels.
Okay. Awesome.
I talked to a client last night. He's like, I want to buy $10,000 worth of silver. So
wow.
It's cool. There's a lot of people buying it right now because they see what's coming.
Yep.
So and when you got when you look at the writing on the wall, you see banks doing what they're doing with their metal. Their
bricks. Yep.
The two winners in this type of fight are going to be people who own real estate and metal. You don't want to hold dollars.
I am with you. I like to hear that. It's sad to hear that, to be honest, but it's true.
About the premiums, but at one point they're not going to care what those premiums are. They're going to be like, I want it because I don't want dollars. As soon as all the shit hits the fan, they're going to be like, I don't care what I pay. I want it. Yeah. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Aaron.
My pleasure.
My pleasure. Back on and
great talking to you guys. If I don't talk to you, happy holidays.
Yes, you as well. To everybody there. Thank you so much, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon.
All right. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks. All right, everybody out there in the stream, in the chat, thank you so much for watching and your questions. You got any questions, if you watch this afterwards, feel free to throw them in the comment section. I'll try to bring them up next time we talk with Aaron. And here, I'll throw up his contact info. I was going to do this a bit earlier, but yeah, you can reach out to Aaron and get a hold of him here at The phone number for the Ancient department is 312-609-1309, or send him an email, info@hgbltd.com. And this is, what a great guy coming on and helping out, newbies like me. So love talking with him. Throw your comments and questions down in there, and we'll try to get him to him next time. All right, thanks everybody.